hazards, integrate climate change measures into national policies, and implement a pre-existing commitment by rich countries to donate $100 billion a year from 2020 to tackle the problem. But its lack of precise targets has left some observers disappointed. Meanwhile, there are also calls that the new goals must tackle inequality. This is especially true now that most of the world's poor live in middle-income countries where there may be enough money and resources to go around, but they are piling up in the hands of a few. Where inequality is out of control, such as in South Africa, the fight to end poverty is stalling as the proportion of resources going to the poorest shrinks. This is not just in terms of direct income. Studies show more unequal societies spend less on public goods like health, education, and transport. So while countries like China have seen fast-paced GDP growth lift millions from poverty, countries like Nigeria, where divisions are more endemic, have seen scant improvements in living conditions for the majority. An overwhelming majority of the 3 billion poorest people in the world live on smallholder farms around forests in coastal areas and depend on these services.
Fundamental changes in the way societies produce and consume are indispensable for achieving global sustainable development. This is important to developed countries as it is to developing countries, because at the end of the day, we are all actually sharing the same planet. Coming specifically now to the farmers measure group, or issues concerning the farmers measure group, we are aware of the challenge that is ahead of us, that we need to be producing sustainably enough food to be able to feed 9 billion people by 2050, and also considering the fact that agriculture in this part of the world, or I would say in developing countries, particularly in Africa, employs 70 to 8% of our people. And as we all know, this is a resource-intensive, industry as well. So how are we really, one, going to sustain the livelihoods of these 70 to 8% people in developing countries, and particularly in Africa, and also at the same time be able, to produce, sustainably, and adequately the amount of food that's actually needed by 2050 to be able to feed the 9 billion people that we're actually expecting to have, there. At the moment, 1/3 of the world food is actually being wasted. So together with actually the need for increase in food production, we also have a lot of work to do in terms of actually managing, our consumptions in terms of food loss and waste. And the food loss happens at both ends, at the production level on the farm, and also, on the consumption level. And also, it's a big problem on the side of Africa in terms of the post-harvest, food losses as well. So at the end of the day, we strongly believe the solution actually lies with the smallholder, farmers, the smallholder farmers, the smallholder pastoralists, smallholder, fisher folks. Because at the end of the day, these are the ones who are actually responsible to produce 70% of the food that is actually being consumed in the world. So we feel like instead of moving into more intensive systems of production in agriculture, and issues that lead to land grabs and a lot of other issues and problems there, we really need to be investing more in these smallholder farmers. Because if we are really working on a transformative agenda, really want to be producing food more sustainably, really the solution lies with these smallholder farmers. And again, at the end of the day, it is to be reflected at different levels. It has to be reflected in national level in terms of our policies, not only being able to prefer or privilege the right investors who are actually coming in with big projects in terms of agriculture, but we also need to be protecting and promoting our own smallholder farmers, and also at the regional level through, for example, in Africa, through the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, and also in the ongoing global processes of coming up with the next development agenda through the SDGs framework and the overall post-2015 development agenda.
It is estimated that ecosystem services and other non-marketed goods account for between 47 and 89% of the GDP of the poor. Given this, the degradation of the productive assets of the poor is creating a poverty trap, which leads to a reinforcing loop of further degradation and worsening poverty. Although the cost of degraded ecosystem services is felt on the ground, particularly by the poor, it often goes unnoticed at national and international levels because of undervaluing of natural capital.
And really, when you think about it, this is the first time in the history of humanity that all nation states agreed that they would eventually agree on a common agenda. And this is no longer just a UN agenda. The MDGs were a UN agenda. The SDGs are member states agreeing on a common agenda to achieve. And why? Because everybody recognizes after 15 years that the world is so globalized. What happens in one country affects another country. If one country tries to reduce poverty on its own, it will not achieve it because another country's actions might in fact increase poverty. So we are clearly all together working on developing an agenda for sustainable development goals.
Everyone agrees on the need to eradicate extreme poverty, yet the evidence shows that this cannot be done without addressing economic inequality. One thing that has been said about the SDGs is that the Sustainable Development Agenda is doomed without a goal to ending inequality. And on that note, we close this file. Thank you for staying tuned. I'm Ayala Kasim. Do join us next time if you could. From all of us here, it's bye for now.